Good morning. I think we have most of the folks that were in line made it through registration process, and we'll be ready to now kick off our 2014 Rural Energy Conference, Empowering Rural Alaska. And we're going to begin with a series of welcome addresses, and our first one comes from Victor Joseph, who's the president and chairman of the Tanana Chiefs, an Alaska Native nonprofit corporation charged with advancing tribal self-determination and enhancing regional Native unity. Victor is a tribal member from the native village of Tanana, and prior to his position as TCC president, he spent the last 20 years building TCC's behavioral and primary health services. As director of health services for 7 years, he oversaw the construction of the new state-of-the-art Chief Andrew Isaac Health Center, which features energy-efficient construction and environmental building systems, which makes it one of the first healthcare facilities in Alaska to receive the Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, LEED, Gold certification. Please help me welcome Mr. Victor Joseph. Thank you. Thank you.
That was getting kind of long. I thought I'd cut that short. Don't want all that stuff being said, right? Anyways, you know, morning. For those visiting Fairbanks, welcome. And just wanted to share a few of my thoughts this morning. I was just asked to come up to welcome people to Fairbanks, welcome them to this conference as we look at how are we going to be moving forward in our future. It becomes very important to us when we look at energy cost. In the month of July, I had the privilege of traveling to about July and August, almost 17 of our rural communities. At the front of almost every discussion was energy and the cost of energy and what we needed to do to reduce it. The impact on individuals, the impact on the tribal governments or the city governments out there in trying to absorb the cost, the high cost that they are now facing. When I think about some of the facilities that our tribes are operating and maintaining, right now they're having to make decisions on whether to buy fuel for some of their facilities or to clean their clinic for sanitation. That's reality out there. Some of our tribal members have to decide, do they buy fuel or they buy gas so that they can go get the food to subsist on? And this becomes a reality. Although that our people are working really hard and diligently on trying to reduce cost, and we have efforts going on by the state and federal government, there's still a lot that needs to be done in reducing the cost of energy. Some of the examples that we have that our tribal governments are doing, recently we built a clinic in Ruby that had some of the highest rating for energy standards possible. I think we had 100 on the roof, 75 on the walls, and 50 on the floor. Right, Dave? That was really good. In addition to that, we have it supported by waste heat and solar, really trying to maximize all of our possibilities in keeping costs low. That's a model that we're moving forward in some of our other communities as we're looking at developing more. As was explained earlier during that long bio, was we constructed a clinic right over here on over by FMH. And one of our designers here is in the room, and I just give her a shout out, Bettysworth North and Tracy. So come on, wave your hand. They really did well helping us. As we're looking at that, being one of the first clinics to receive LEED Gold certificate was something else. And we couldn't have done that with a lot of partnerships. And that was very important for us. One, the requirement was that we had to meet at least LEED Silver. But we went a little step further. One of the partnerships is with our borough, and Mayor Luke Hopkins. I want to give him a shout out here too, Mayor. In the way he worked with us to make sure we had enough bus routes going by the facility. We now have over 21 stops there, I think, per day. That assisted us. In working with the city, we're able to bring their steam heat or their waste heat over from across Airport Highway over to our facility, and it's now heated by steam waste heat from the facility MUS. That was a great move. It's nice seeing those little boilers that we have that dispenses all the heat in a 95,000 square feet facility. In addition to that, in some of our rural areas, we're using a lot of biomass, and that's really starting to take hold in a lot of our area. The school in Tok has significantly reduced their cost. Tanana has been able to significantly reduce their cost, but also employ people that have to go out and get the wood. So it's a win-win situation for them. As we look at other options in our future, our one goal is, how are we going to continue to maximize the resources that are available that really needs to move us forward? The dollars are shrinking. We have to be more efficient, and we have to be a little bit smarter as we're moving forward. We have to maximize everything that we have. Our partnerships with the state, with the federal government, becomes very important with some of the programs. We still are working with some of our communities to make sure they're connected to PCE. That really helps. But what's more important in there, we have to expand that one opportunity there to include other facilities within that community, or those communities, so that they can also be supported by this really important program. If the tribes are having to make, or the tribes or the city governments are having to make the type of decisions that I explained earlier, we need to do something a little bit there so that we can make sure that they can sustain their communities for the long term. When we look at some of these infrastructures in those communities, and we know that other areas are struggling, like our education system, our school-based systems, and we know they're one of the main contributors to paying for the cost of energy in those communities, we have to make sure that they remain healthy. Everything's connected to them, water, sewer, and electricity. They really help pay the cost. So we need to make sure that's happening. We need to make sure that the clinics stay warm and dry. And we need to make sure that our tribal members can afford the lifestyle they choose to live in this great state of Alaska. We are unique in a lot of ways. We have to honor that uniqueness and make sure that we are doing what we can so that Alaska can remain that way. That's all I had to say this morning. I just want to welcome you here to Fairbanks. Thank you for coming. Anabasi. Ha.
Thank you. Okay, we'll shorten the next bio. Next we have Senator John Coghill. Senator Coghill was first elected to the legislature as a state representative for District 32 in 1998, and then appointed to the Alaska Senate in 2009, where he's been the Senate Majority Leader since January 2013. He did spend 5 years in the United States Air Force and reached the rank of Staff Sergeant. And to keep us right on schedule, please welcome Senator John Coghill.
Thank you. Thank you, and welcome to my area. I represent the the North Pole, Fairbanks, kind of the Farmers Loop area that butts up right up against the university there. So, welcome. So we tried to get a good hard freeze for you last night so that you'd feel good. here we go into winter, right? One of the things I get to do is I get to represent a people that that feels probably the crunch from several different ways. So let me just give you a little context to what's going on here in the Fairbanks area. You know, we're also dependent upon oil probably more than we would like to be. We have a generator out at North Pole that drinks up a lot of fuel oil, and we got to get off of that. It sits in a refinery that has stacks now that are cold. It used to refine a lot of fuel, and I am a casualty of that in many ways. My own son worked out there for a lot of years, and he lost his job when they shut down one of their last stacks out there at Flint Hills. And because of that, the cost of fuel went up again yet here in Fairbanks. And so it's been painful for us. Add that with DEC regulations, and I know many of you know DEC's regulations on stack emissions, even in the small generator areas in your smaller communities. But we actually have this kind of interesting problem. My district actually fits a part of the horseshoe valley that Fairbanks sits in, and we have the MUS coal plant, we have the coal plant out at Fort Wainwright, we have one at Eielson. You know, we burn a lot of coal here, but the university, for example, they depend upon the heat. You know, Jerry Isaac was talking about how the steam heat come from our coal-fired generator heats a good chunk of downtown Fairbanks. So we have been working on being efficient for years and years and years, trying to take what we burn for electricity, take that heat and make it useful. That's why Fort Wainwright has been still a viable military location, and we depend upon the military. We're trying to make sure that they place the F-35s here, for example. We think that would not only be good economics for Fairbanks, but good security for the whole United States as we look to the Asian Pacific. So we feel in this area that we have a lot to offer both the United States, Alaska, but we feel the crunch just like everybody else does on how to produce enough economy to live the lifestyle that we've gotten used to. But I'm going to back up a little bit on my bio. So I followed this cute little gal from Tanana to Fairbanks almost 40 years ago, and I never made it back to Tanana. But I was raised in Tanana, and one of the reasons Tanana was such a vibrant community when I was a young child was three main economies that we produced with. One of them was we were one of the main shipping points on the river. So the folks in Ruby, the folks in Caltag, the folks in Fort Yukon, I got to know the family names because I was the one that got to label things that went on the docks, that went on the boats, that went up to the villages. And so I know back in those days, energy went slow boat to wherever it was going on the river system. There is no roads except for that was the main highway. But we had the benefit of the railroad, so we were a good shipping point. We had the benefit of a coal mine just to the south of us, which was a good producer of an economy that was a benefit to both the power up here in Fairbanks, the power down in Healy, and heating in Fairbanks, heating in Tanana. I was the kid, as a young kid, that got to carry buckets of coal ash out of the basement because we heated with coal, because it was the most affordable, abundant supply that we had. We also, I lived in a town where the smell of, you could tell the different smells between birch and pine, and you could tell when somebody was burning cottonwood too. And I loved the smell of it, but it hung low even in Tanana. And Tanana had a prevailing wind all the time. So in the winter it blew one way, and in the summer it blew another way. But we did what we had to do. I still remember as a kid that when we went from a two-cylinder engine to a Caterpillar engine and finally got the intertie in the 70s. I think the first intertie hookup, I'm sorry, was the year of the flood, 1967, if I remember correctly, somewhere around there. So we're a growing state. And I've seen us, out of necessity, grow from not only the power production and the power distribution, certainly on the rail belt, but I've also seen the lifestyle that we've changed. When we were shipping things to Nulato, for example, the fuel oil was used in pot burners. Remember those old pot burners? Very inefficient. But because they didn't have a lot of electricity, that's what they used. And then pretty soon we got electricity, and we started living in a cash economy, and our houses changed, and our needs changed. And so we started growing, and the growth pains of how do you live building this economy so you could have street lights or you could light your schools really became something that I became more and more aware of. And when I got married and I started paying bills, then I realized, oh, I got to pay bills for all this too. And so not only did I have to learn that I had to pay taxes to Uncle Sam, but I also learned that the telephone, the light bill, the fuel bill were part of the insurance. Pretty soon I was asking, what's left for me? And really in communities, we have cities asking that very question right now. Can we do this? We have cities right now that are right on the edge of not being able to do it because we have grown to the place where we depend upon them, and we got to produce something to help us stay that way. So that's why I'm probably a big advocate of resource development, because to me, if you don't produce something, then you're not going to be able to sustain the life that we have now gotten used to. So whether it's mining, whether it's tourism, just name what we have, what asset we have to develop. So as a kid from a local area, and we depend upon tourism. We depend upon that railroad. We really were dependent upon the military here. And so whatever you have as assets you start dependent upon, you want to help them grow. As a state legislator, I can assure you that we want to help them grow, and I've got two legislators right here. What do we do to, I know in your world, Bryce, it's fishing. In the southeast Alaska, many big cities have hydro, a real benefit, but many small cities don't, and hooking them up those long extension cords just make it unaffordable to do. And so we've got to figure out those kind of things. At the state, we work with the Energy Authority, and so I'm glad for this particular meeting. As a state, we've tried to help with building the hydros, helping with the renewables, putting the Renewable Energy Fund together. We've done things that have tried to do conservation, whether it's the weatherization for the interior here. Can we get trucking natural gas off the slope? And I can tell you, for me as a kid from the interior, if I can get it from the North Slope, here's my attitude. I get it, I'm the first in to get it and probably the last one out. If I get it from Kenai, I'm probably the last one in and the first one out. And so to me, getting it off that North Slope is a big deal. And that keeps us until maybe we can get that big pipeline, which we in the legislature have been working diligently for years and years. And by God's grace, if I live long enough, I'm hoping to see a pipeline come down that corridor from the North Slope to some market. If we can produce enough gas to sell it on the open market, we in Alaska benefit. Maybe we could chill it enough to put it up and down the river systems, on the road systems. Maybe Toke can get a better benefit. Maybe instead of 67 cents a kilowatt hour, they can get it down to 27 cents. You could live on that in Toke, but they're the first gateway to the interior. And for those of you in Western Alaska, we have paid a lot of attention to you in many, many ways, or storage, issues like that. But there is an Eastern Alaska, and they need to be tied together to maybe a grid. They're a little closer to grid opportunities. So hydro in Valdez is something that we've supported that will help energize that Eastern Alaska as much as possible. So in the legislature, I'm one of 20. You're in my area, but we are 20. We're one, and we're all in this together. So with all the brain power that's here today and this week, the ideas that maybe we need to sideline, this is a good time to be talking about them. The ideas that we need to put more pressure on, this is a good time to talk about them. So I'm going to be listening. I'm going to have staff here at every meeting. There are several different segments of this, so I will be listening in, paying attention, and I'm going to take as much of this message to my legislature as possible, because I am one of 20, but we're all in this together. So welcome to Fairbanks. I look forward to your work. I look forward to working with you. God bless you.
Thank you, Senator. Next, we have Mayor Luke Hopkins, who's been a resident of Fairbanks for over 45 years. He's attended the University of Alaska Fairbanks and continued his involvements there on campus for over 35 years in various planning and operational capacities. He served on the local borough's planning commission for over 7 years and on the assembly for more than 5 before becoming mayor, and he's been involved in a whole slew of committee work across the states. And he and his wife live here with their children and grandchildren. Please welcome Mayor Luke Hopkins.
Well, thank you very much. The introductions are getting briefer, and that's better. But of course, I want to say welcome to the center of the state, or just about the center of the state. It's more than Fairbanks, includes North Pole too. But as Senator Coghill said, it's rather chilly out there this morning. It might even snow here, so that brings about the talk, gosh, winter is just about here. But really the talk of winter is about the talk about energy. It's a talk about what we're going to pay to heat our homes, our businesses, and produce power for our schools. So I want to say also here at the center of the state, I want to thank Chancellor Rogers for what he's doing, making UAF a center of these issues. Brian, thank you very much. Because here at UAF, we have the Alaska Center for Energy and Power. They're doing a lot. I work with many of their staff in discussing what are solutions for areas around the center of the state. We look at what they're doing with measuring on how to produce in-river hydropower. That's really important for our communities that are off of the grid, where so many of them are. I also want to do a shout out to Cold Climate Housing Research. They have the ability, they have the information and the research to say, instead of wondering how we can reduce our energy consumption by more wind, more solar, they also talk about that, but reducing the cost of energy use in our homes is a basic principle that they put forth for our state to use. Reducing the energy consumption in our homes by up to 30% or more has been demonstrated. And again, here at UAF, we can see from some of the innovative student housing that's been developed, but we all know that, that there are examples of what Cold Climate Housing Research does across the state with incredibly energy efficient homes. That's what we need to be looking at moving forward with more. Again, the energy we don't burn is the energy that we save. So, of course, you have, various aspects of here in the interior. You have, I sometimes want to say infamous Bernie Carl with the Chena Power. I don't hear him here, so that's probably okay. He'd probably stand up at this point. So, but again, we have other groups, and they're represented here at this head table. I want to say to Sarah Fisher-Goad with AEA, thank you for what you're doing of pushing things forward. I know that as I look at what's possible coming into Fairbanks with trucked LNG, our residents have to put a lot of infrastructure in, lots of things have to get built. Lots of that is loans, lots of that is what gets paid back by the ratepayers. AEA, though, and other funding sources around the state that reach out into individual small communities and villages, they are getting some of the benefits of lower cost energy, whether it's wind, solar, or biomass, and not all of that has to be paid back, and that's a darn good thing. So for AEA and the other agencies that are in the state and the federal government, thanks for doing that for our Alaskan residents. But we all struggle with the cost of energy. I just look across the room, whether you live in downtown Fairbanks or you live out at the end of one of the peninsulas in Alaska. We all want lower cost energy. But some communities are getting that benefit. What we have to do is spread that, I call it wealth, across the rest of the state. I hope that from this conference, there's excellent ideas and excellent ways to move things forward. That's what's important. It's a simple term, let's move it forward, but we have to, you in this conference, have the power and the energy to do that work. I look across this room, though, and I see that not a lot of young people here, a lot of gray hair people here, but the STEM program, and I just, this summer, the National Science Foundation gave $1.5 million towards scholarships for STEM education programs, science, technology, engineering, and math. That's who needs to be using this in our schools to move our young people into continued development of ways we can solve our energy problem. And I certainly hope that that gets used. That particular grant is for rural students in Alaska, and I'm very pleased that that's available. The educating our youth, educating ourselves, is incredibly important. So I just want to say that all of you are here, and I certainly hope that you, while you're in Fairbanks, that you share the information, share the knowledge, and share your experiences with how you can move this forward. And it's certainly going to be good hearing some of these excellent presentations at this conference. So while you're in Fairbanks, get out of the room and go see some of the places that are well known in Fairbanks, and especially in the evening. But enjoy yourselves, be safe, and stay warm. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Hopkins. Okay, so we're going to shift into our programs now and hear from our distinguished panel. And we'll start first with the board chair for the Alaska Energy Authority, Mr. Russel Dick, who also hails from Southeast. And he was appointed to the boards of ADA and AEA in 2013. He's the president and CEO of Ha'ani, which is a subsidiary of Sea Alaska that really focuses on rural communities and economic development and innovative thinking. They've really inspired a lot of entrepreneurs in some of our rural communities there in Southeast. He also serves as the board chair for Huna Totem Corporation. So please welcome Mr. Russel Dick.
Well, thank you, and good morning, everybody. Since we're giving shout-outs here today, I'd like to give a shout-out to my Southeast buddies. I see Bob in the back. I think Grace Villarreal is here as well. So thank you for being here. And welcome to the Rural Energy Conference, and thank you to Fairbanks for hosting this conference today and this week. Many of you have traveled from all across the state of Alaska, and it's great to see so many people here dealing with an issue that is so close to all of our hearts. And for me, growing up in Huna, which is a small village in Southeast Alaska, I know quite well the impacts that the high cost of energy have on economic sustainability in our communities. So the Rural Energy Conference is at the heart of AEA's mission to reduce the cost of energy across the state. And we're proud to offer this opportunity here this week for information sharing and conversation, and truly looking at innovative ways to deal with the high cost of energy in our communities. As you look at the agenda, it reflects the conference goals to promote economic development, environmental sustainability, and energy security. So over the next 3 days, I think you all will discuss energy planning, project development, energy efficiency, lessons learned, and developing projects in rural communities. And I think that's the most important part of this, the lessons learned. And I know there's no better way to develop projects and opportunities across our rural communities than learning from the lessons that others have taken on. And Victor talked to some of that earlier today. So I'd encourage you to network, share ideas, share your challenges, share your concerns. Because we know that affordable energy and stable energy are the building blocks of our healthy communities. And it's challenging. And again, working in Southeast Alaska, I've seen the devastation that the high cost of energy has had in our rural communities. Many of the communities I knew growing up in Southeast Alaska are struggling and don't even exist. You couldn't recognize them today. So it's close to everybody's heart, and I think it's important that we're all dealing with this and appreciating the resources that the state is putting forward to deal with this issue. So Alaska's regions face unique energy challenges, but also have unique opportunities, as was discussed earlier, and a ton of resources available to meet the needs of the future. And I have to say, in the job that I have in Southeast Alaska and dealing with economic sustainability, I had no idea what programs existed to deal with energy. And so I'm very honored and I'm privileged to have been appointed by Governor Parnell to serve as the chair of Alaska Energy Authority and as the vice chair of ADA. Because having that opportunity has allowed me to really get familiar with all of the programs that AEA has to offer. And so I think it's just critical. It's incumbent upon us as communities, as community leaders, as residents, as folks dealing with energy, to truly understand the programs that the state has put forth to help address energy challenges of today and tomorrow. But I also say, in the spirit of partnership and understanding, that AEA has also learned quite a bit from you. AEA has learned that partnerships and collaboration and truly listening and hearing the voices of the community are critical, that we're not so internally focused as to think that we have the answers and the solutions to everybody's problems and all the community's problems and issues, that we need to be more externally focused. And what I mean is that in order to be effective, energy planning must be done at the regional level, and it must engage community leaders and residents in finding solutions that meet their very unique challenges. And St. George is a perfect example, and I wanted to touch on this. Many of you may have seen this article that came out in the Alaska Dispatch News by Patrick Pletnikoff, who's the mayor of St. George. And I want to just read one part of it. To help resolve the energy issues on St. George, the Alaska Energy Authority created a long-term plan in partnership with our community to address the needs on the island. This included both wind generation and upgrading the diesel generators to become more efficient. And I think that's outstanding, because that's what it's going to take. It's all about partnerships. It's not thinking that the state can come in and do this for you, that we can work together and find joint solutions that meet the needs of our communities. So in addition to the specific energy planning efforts, the legislature and the administration in this past legislative session provided a direct connection between large capital projects on the rail belt and energy security in rural Alaska. As part of the gas line legislation, AEA was tasked with building upon the regional plans across the state to identify ways to provide affordable energy to areas that will not be served by the gas line. And you'll be hearing much more about this from the energy planning team during this conference. But if there's one thing that you should take away from this, and the mandate that Alaska Energy has, 20% of the royalties from the gas line will go into a fund to help develop energy projects for communities that are not on that grid. And I think that's incredible. It's a tremendous amount of resource that will go into developing sustainable energy projects for our rural communities. Now, many of the conference sessions are dedicated to the workhorses of energy stability, bulk fuel systems, and before we can begin thinking about renewable or emerging energy technologies, it's important to support an efficient, safe, and reliable power system. Now, AEA, I know, has worked with many of you to complete over $300 million in bulk fuel and power system upgrades. And this not only improves the safety in our communities, but it also helps save money. And it's not uncommon to see 30 to 40% savings, fuel savings, after a powerhouse upgrade is completed. And I think that's absolutely incredible. You hear a lot about energy efficiency during this conference. And through our Village Energy Efficiency Program, we are seeing results of 30% immediate energy savings. This is an energy cost reduction strategy that works regardless of location, from Southeast Alaska to Western Alaska to interior to the North Slope. And I would like to recognize Victor Joseph and the Tanana Chiefs Conference for their efforts to promote and support energy efficiency. 8 interior communities have participated in the Village Energy Efficiency Program, and we hope to be able to continue expanding this resource to realize additional community savings throughout the state. Now, Alaska is very fortunate to have the resources that we have to deal with this energy crisis. including renewable energy. Through Alaska Energy Authority's Renewable Energy Grant Fund, nearly $228 million have been invested in 251 projects across the state. Last year, this resulted in the displacement of over 13 million gallons of diesel and natural gas equivalent. And this program, I know, has been instrumental in Southeast Alaska. A number of organizations have used this program. There are several projects looking at biomass heating systems. We at Sea Alaska Corporation were the first to install it on a large-scale commercial basis. The Walter Soboleff Center is going to be, which is being constructed now, is going to be fully heated by biomass wood pellets as well. And that came through programs like the Renewable Energy Grant Fund. And I believe the Renewable Energy Fund Advisory Committee will be meeting here or getting ready to meet anyway to evaluate the applications for round 8 of the program and continue to work to ensure that good projects get built for Alaska communities to benefit from local resources. Now, in addition to the Renewable Energy Fund, we also help invest in energy technologies on the cusp of commercialization. The Emerging Energy Technology Fund has provided nearly $12 million to support more than 20 projects. And some of the success stories include a power-dense motor to provide more efficient diesel power generation. And this was invented not by outside entities, but by operators of a machining and fabricating shop in Kodiak, and again, is on the cusp of commercialization. In Igiagig, Ocean Renewable Power Company has deployed its first freshwater hydrokinetic device on the Kwijak River. And the innovation spirit is strong in our state and is an important component of our energy future. And we can't stress that enough. Innovation will be absolutely critical to dealing with energy in our rural communities. And finally, the Power Cost Equalization Program directly impacts 188 communities across Alaska. AEA administers the program to provide economic assistance in rural Alaska where electrical rates, as we all know, can be 3 to 4 times higher than in urban Alaska. And it's not just the program as it exists today. We are always working to improve the program to the benefit of ratepayers and to work with communities who are not currently enrolled in the program. And we will have AEA staff here and RCA staff here for you to talk with and to answer any questions that you might have, because if you're not on that program, you should be. Now, before closing, of course, I'd like to recognize our conference partners, the Alaska Center for Energy and Power, but also recognize the current administration and the legislature, again, for the resources that they've put forth to deal with energy across the state. And it's safe to assume that each of your communities have had positive benefits from at least one of AEA's programs. And this, what I've given you today is just an overview, it's a highlight of how these programs work and what they are, but there are a ton more programs that I think everybody can take advantage of. So in closing, I wanted to touch on one more part of this Alaska Dispatch news article. It's actually a great article if you haven't read it. Very inspiring. Our strong and productive partnership with AEA produced great energy improvements that will make St. George more competitive in the regional fishery economy and help to stabilize our community. Now, I'm not familiar with St. George, but again, I want to bring it back to the partnerships. Because again, I think that's critical. It's not incumbent upon the state to solve all of our problems. It's incumbent upon all of us to work in partnership between the communities and the state to solve our problems in our rural communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. Our next speaker is John Moller, who's the Senior Rural Affairs Advisor to Governor Parnell and is a member of the Governor's Cabinet. He's worked for many years in Alaska as a commercial fisherman and currently owns and operates a commercial fishing vessel. He also served on a number of native and local government community boards and committees, including 4 years on the advisory panel to the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council and 12 years as general manager of the Aleutian Pribilof Island Community Development Association. Born in Unalaska, now resides in Juneau with his wife and children. Please welcome Mr. John Moller.
Well, good morning. Well, thanks. I I guess I should have reviewed that bio before they sent it off. I probably could have put some energy stuff in there, but I will say that the commercial fisherman part of it, I think, applies. However, I've got a Bristol Bay gillnetter in southeast Alaska, and it is diesel powered, and someday we'll look at maybe alternative power for that vessel. But so that's how maybe I'll update my bio for the next go around. Again, thank you, Russell. Some really good words there. You're a tough act to follow. I feel unprepared at the moment, but I think I'll muddle through it. But, you know, 5 years in the governor's office and being a part of his budget team and watching the energy projects, and having grown up in a village of Unalaska, which was at one point in time, many of you don't look at it maybe as a village anymore, but at one point in time it was. At one point in time, there was about 250 people that lived there, and there were very few jobs. I remember my father having to leave town to support his family in Unalaska. You know, but before I start, I want to talk about oil, just for a moment. And the oil I want to talk about is seal oil. Let me tell you a story. In my travels as the governor's rural affairs advisor, it took me to Bethel one day, and a dear friend of mine out there that runs the tribe invited me over for lunch. And he goes, on the menu that day was dried fish, which many of us in this room are quite fond of. Well, when I got over there, I was asked, do I want seal oil? And most of us that like seal oil and eat seal oil will have a saucer, and we put a little bit of seal oil in it, and we dip our dry fish in it when we eat it. Well, I get there and I gladly accepted the offer for seal oil. Well, out came a bowl that was about the size of what you probably ate your Cheerios in this morning. And then out came 1 gallon jug of seal oil. And my friend proceeded to fill up that bowl. The thoughts going through my mind and racing through my heart were, oh Lord, this must be for all of us. Then he got his own bowl out. So what do I tell that? Well, it keeps getting laughs like I just got. But more importantly, unlike my bowl of seal oil, of which, you know, I was not going to be disrespectful and leave any in the bowl, but we'll leave that story at that. So unlike my bowl of seal oil, our pipeline is not full. And that is why Governor Parnell introduced SB 21. The projects that you're going to be talking about the next couple of days take money. And unless we put more oil in that pipeline, and we believe what we introduce is going to get us there, these projects are not possible. Very, very important projects. But the state of Alaska, and as my friend Russell talked about, there's been, and as I have experienced on the governor's budget team, that there has been an awful lot of support by our elected legislators as well as the governor's office, and the partnerships that we have across the state. So that's been a great thing to be a part of, and especially growing up in the village and seeing, and my job taking me to many villages every month of the year. So you're going to hear, you heard from Russell before me, and you'll hear from the speakers after me, a lot of energy talk. Well, you ain't going to hear much of that from this guy. Not because it's not important, but I think there's another component to health in rural Alaska that's tied into energy. So I want to capitalize a little bit on what Senator Coghill talked about, and that is you know, economic opportunities. As I mentioned earlier, my dad had to leave the town. That town is Unalaska, as I mentioned, And today it's the fishing capital of our nation. Everybody in that town that wants a job has a job. That's a good thing. So, again, we're going to be on heating fuel for a little bit. Hopefully not as long as hopefully we get that transition done in the near term versus farther down the road. But the way I see things at times is, it's been a long time since we paid $1 a gallon for heating fuel, but it was there at one point in time, and it could go back to that today. Unrealistic. But even if it did, without a job to put that $1 in my pocket, I can't buy that gallon of heating fuel. So I want to focus a little bit today on economic opportunities for rural Alaskans that actually create some jobs, to put some cash in folks' pockets so we can afford whatever energy we might have in our villages over the next decade or so. So again, every individual in Alaska that wants a job has a job, and there's some darn good paying jobs out there. And although as painful as the $4 or $4.50 a gallon that we're paying for heating fuel in Alaska, it's not easy to do, but most of us actually have the cash to do it. So I think it's an important component of health in rural Alaska. You know, Governor Parnell believes the role of government is to create an environment that is conducive for the private sector investment and sustainability. One of the things I really appreciate about Russell's comments in regard to St. George, and I do know about St. George, it's actually my neck of the woods. But through those partnerships, there's hope. What you heard in that article that Russell brought up was there's hope in at least the mayor's comments from a St. George perspective that maybe he's going to be able to help save his community with some sort of economic opportunity. Senator Coghill talked about why he's a supporter of resource development. I too am, but I'm also, for my brothers and sisters in the room that a large part of, if not most of their economies based on our subsistence lifestyle, I don't want it to be, don't take for a moment that I don't think that's important. I am a subsistence user, I am a subsistence hunter, I gather. That is an incredible important part of our rural Alaskan economy. I respect that, and the Governor Parnell respects that. But we still need a cash economy to support our subsistence lifestyle. At least I do. I'm particularly fond of my aluminum boat that burns way more gas than it probably should. So, again, the Governor believes that we need to create an environment that's friendly to those of you in the room that like to start businesses and create economic opportunity in the villages. We've had, and removing barriers is an important part of that, making a friendly environment. Improving workforce development and training. Enhancing transportation systems. Roads to resources. Some of you have heard that term. There's a number of roads that the state has supported thanks to our elected officials and the Governor's leadership with respect to creating alternative access to to job opportunities in terms of roads to resources. We've got a number of projects in the works right now, but really exciting about this is we have a road right now. Many of you that aren't from the interior may not know about this, but we have a road right now that's going out to Tanana. This has been a long time in the making. The idea is it's going to access resources on state land, and the other part of the idea is it creates jobs for those that live in the region, and we believe that's all part of the health of our villages. By the way, that road to Tanana, it is the first new state road in over 2 decades. That road, just to use it as an example, will likely, I mean, there's studies out there, and we can debate whether one agrees with the studies or not, but anybody that really thinks about it, if you're going to truck fuel to a village versus fly it to a village, it seems to make sense that it's probably going to be at a better cost, not to mention the other consumables that we need and desire in our daily lives in the villages. So we're in favor of creating new access. And this, you know, the energy cost in itself, I mean, there's a level of excitement that I've heard from many people in Tanana that just is really exciting to be a part of that. So where we can, we will continue to support those types of projects. You know, freight costs in itself on this Tanana Road, the study says it will, there'll be $600,000 annual savings just in freight costs alone, which includes fuel, just to Tanana. Then access beyond that to places like Ruby and other communities that are close to this road. That number just grows. One number said $3 million annual savings to the other communities, including Tanana. That's $3 million more in the pockets of Alaskans. I think that's a good thing. Now, you know, there's, Russell talked about Governor Parnell and working with, on energy as a whole here, you know, the interior energy plan, for example, that is something that the governor spearheaded. It's a historical agreement with the goal of a North Slope LNG plant. Now I hear when I cross the state, I hear it across the state in rural Alaska, well, what's this do for our villages? Well, the bottom line is this thing is not likely going to be feasible unless it goes to Fairbanks. Fairbanks market needs to be met. But what it does allow for that gas to be distributed throughout the state in liquid form. That's what it creates. And as I have this conversation, as I travel across the state and the villages and explain it as such, at least in my limited capacity to talk specifics on that particular project, but nonetheless, it does have benefits to rural Alaska. You know, I would suggest that without an LNG plant, the possibilities for rural Alaska for lower energy costs via gas are probably nil. Again, the governor's office has spearheaded that project, and we will continue to keep it a priority. Susitna-Wantana, another huge project. It too will provide a large amount of energy, primarily to the railboat. But again, that's a project as well that the governor will continue to support. You know, in closing, I would like to, I actually don't have another seal oil story, but I'll have to work that in next time, I guess. But, you know, Russell spoke about SB 20 or SB 138, and just to reiterate, you know, that 20% fund that it was brought up in Bethel here recently from some elected officials out in that way when the governor and I met with them about the possibilities of that fund being used for many of our rural energy projects. And certainly that's that discussion needs to be had amongst the elected officials, but I certainly see some interest in it, and I think it's a very, very, very important component of that particular bill and the opportunities for rural Alaska's energy needs. But again, our energy projects are going to cost, and you know better than me, they cost dearly. So we need to make sure that our coffers on a statewide level are up, and that we that we do all we can to make sure that we have an increased flow of oil on that pipeline, our main artery to the state coffers. So with that, I think I'll just stop and leave it to the next speaker. I hope you guys all be here for the better part of the conference, in and out, but I wish you all a real good conference, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker is Chancellor Brian Rogers, who was named to the post of Chancellor in the Alaska University of Alaska Fairbanks in May 2009. He's a longtime Fairbanks resident and state leader, and served for 7 years as the UA Systems Finance Vice President, 4 years in the Alaska State House, and 8 years on the UA Board of Regents, with 3 of those as chair. He himself is a former UAF student, as is his wife and 2 children, and he received his master's degree in public administration from the Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government. He's still quite active on a number of other boards. He chairs the U-Arctic Board of Governors, Nature Conservancy Alaska Trustees, and the Great Northwest Athletic Conference CEO Board. And I know he was very successful in the private sector as well. But lest we go on, please welcome to the podium Chancellor Brian Rogers.
Well, thank you, Robert, and I want to welcome everyone, join everyone else in welcoming you to Fairbanks. You know, with over 300 people registered for this conference, it really is a significant undertaking, the 9th Rural Energy Conference. And as a state legislator in the late 1970s, I could have only, who worked on energy issues, I could only dream that there would be this many people who are caring and committed to the issues of rural energy in Alaska. At the University of Alaska Fairbanks, 6 years ago, we decided to stand up a new research center, a different one from the other research units at the university, one that's focused on applied research specific to Alaska. Most of our research centers have permanent faculty. They're focused on where the primary sources of funding for research in this nation are, and that's federal funding. And we said, we want something that's a little bit different. We want very applied research focused on Alaska issues, an entity that will focus on partnering with tribes, partnering with communities, partnering with agencies, partnering with the private sector, partnering with nonprofits, that would draw on the resources throughout the University of Alaska system to try to better serve and address the pressing issues of energy in Alaska. And thanks to 2 very important things, I think we've succeeded fairly well. One is leadership, with Gwen Holdman leading and really being that connector that has connected us to communities, to tribes throughout Alaska. And the other is the partnership with the Alaska Energy Authority, a great partnership that really goes back to the beginning of ASEP, a long-standing collaboration. As Russell mentioned, that's where we're successful. It's when we work across our institutional boundaries, where we can connect and share with each other. And this joint work in energy and disseminating information out to communities, to tribes, to nonprofits, to businesses, I think is demonstrating that success. We're really pleased at the level of research that we've been able to conduct on behalf of AEA and the communities. And whether we're dealing with research into new technologies or mapping energy resources through the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, or understanding how the installed systems that we have in our communities are working, or in some cases not working, and why, we think that it's important that research continue to be relevant and important to not only the policymakers, but also to the people who are there day to day making the energy systems work and run. So the Alaska Center for Energy and Power, one of the specialties is in collecting and managing the technical performance data from isolated energy systems and looking at the whole life cycle of that data, the collection, the quality assurance, the analysis, the storage, and the data service. All of those together provide tools that are available to communities, to energy providers. The Power Systems Integration Lab allows ACEP to play a key role in Alaska's energy future, housing 3 established test beds, which really give us a remarkable opportunity to partner with industry, partner with agencies to develop innovative energy solutions. The Tanana River Hydrokinetic Test Site is used to test hydrokinetic power generating devices, to test related technologies, and to really characterize the river environment under realistic Alaska River conditions. And I'm pleased to note that on September 4th, the U.S. Department of Energy just announced it'll be providing a $4 million to a 3-university consortium, UAF, the University of Washington, and Oregon State University, to enhance the work on field-focused marine and hydrokinetic energy research, MHK, to really convert the energy of waves, tides, rivers, and ocean currents into electricity. ACEP has what may be the only in-river test site in the Tanana River in the country, and so it's getting more and more contacts from companies who want to test in-river turbine technologies. And, you know, I could go on for quite a while talking about the different things that ACEP is working on, incorporating renewables into diesel systems, developing efficient microgrids at the village and community scale. But what I really encourage you as attendees here to do is connect with the ACEP staff who are here. Because as Chancellor, I know a little bit, they know a lot, and can answer questions and I think really help you with the issues that you want to have addressed. Now, the University of Alaska Fairbanks, you know, we have Fairbanks in our name, but we serve the entire state and with a special focus on rural Alaska. Our service areas of our Kotzebue, Nome, Bethel, Dillingham, Interior, and Aleutians campus, we cover 2/3 of the tribes in Alaska. We have a special responsibility to address those tribal and community needs. And, you know, we know that every state with a strong economy has a strong research university. But we also know that to have a strong research university, you need a strong state economy. So it's part of our job at the university to continue to be part of what, you know, for 150 years, land-grant universities have been there to help address the specific economic needs of the communities that we serve. And that's our job too. So please don't be afraid to ask us for things that you need. You know, there are other areas I think that UAF has research that can support what you need at community level: remote sensing, doing climate scenarios, graduating over 100 engineers every year that can help work on the projects that you have. So again, we're here as a university to serve you. If you can't tell, I am proud of and enthusiastic about what this university is doing to address Alaska energy issues. We are proud to be a partner with the Alaska Energy Authority to collaborate on important research that benefits this state. A special thank you to the state legislators who are here for your support of this energy research and for connecting UAF to our communities. You know, the program today is filled with a lot of detailed topics that I think can address questions. The variety here in the next 3 days is remarkable. I really hope everyone enjoys the conference. And again, thank you to AEA, to the legislators who funded AEA and ACEP, and to all of our conference sponsors. And thank you for taking time to be here for the next 3 days.
Thank you, Chancellor. And I can tell you as well as a proud parent of a UAF student that I feel very proud of the return I'm getting on my investment already in the university system and the work that you're doing here. Our next keynote speaker is Pilar Thomas, who is the Acting Director of the Office of Indian Energy Policy and Programs at the U.S. Department of Energy. As an attorney, Ms. Thomas previously served as Deputy Solicitor for Indian Affairs at the U.S. Department of Interior and has a rather accomplished legal career, which you can read about in your booklet as well. I will also say that the fact that she has become quite the familiar face in rural Alaska over the last couple of years as she's gone back and forth, and I've been proud to have a couple of adventures with her as well, and would welcome her to the podium. So please welcome Pilar Thomas.
I got 40 minutes. And I'm a lawyer. I get paid to speak. And thank you for paying my salary, so I'll speak. No, good afternoon, everybody. It is, I think, 1:30 my time in Washington, D.C. I want to thank AEA and ASAP for once again inviting the Department of Energy to participate here in the Alaska Rural Energy Conference. It's great to be back here in Fairbanks. I was here 3 weeks ago. It was green, it was warm, and I landed the other day, and what happened? The Office of Indian Energy is also very proud to be a presenting sponsor this year again for this gathering of folks from around the state who are all engaged and involved in working on the multitude of energy issues and challenges and opportunities that exist in rural Alaska and Alaska Native villages on energy. I'm also honored to talk a little bit about the efforts that we are putting out, we have over the last couple of years. I see a lot of familiar faces. I'm always happy to be back in Alaska. Any place but Washington, D.C. right now is a great place to be, but Alaska especially. And we've had a real privilege of working with Alaska Native villages, Native corporations, village corporations, the regional corporations, and the intertribal organizations on how we can help empower Alaska Native villages and tribal members and community members to unlock their incredible resources, their renewable energy resources, their conventional energy resources, but more importantly, their human resources. How do we unlock those resources to reduce what everyone admits is a crushing burden? We've heard it earlier today. We know we are very familiar with this challenge, both in Alaska and in Indian country, where we work in the lower 48 with tribes who also can experience high energy costs and the challenges that produces for them of having sustainable communities. These challenges, of course, are unique in Alaska. And I always tease folks back home that it is different up here. Not that different, but it is different. And up here, the challenges, we frame the challenges when we talk about what's happening in Alaska around three basic tenets: technological challenges, the human capacity building challenges, and the financing challenges. You've heard already about the challenges we have with reduced funding, and hopefully maybe some more funding depending on how the pipeline goes, but certainly these three sets of challenges which are interlocking and which each results in, or the failure of each, results in us not being able to accomplish the energy goals that we have. And so we're trying very hard to identify what are some of the things that we can do at the Department of Energy, working in collaboration with the Alaska Energy Authority, the Alaska Center for Energy and Power, the multitude of, again, tribal and intertribal organizations to achieve the goals that we share with you, which is to reduce the cost of energy, to reduce the price of energy, to reduce the overall use of energy where appropriate, so that Alaska Native villages and rural communities can see improved living conditions and a better chance at future economic development. My boss was up here last month, Secretary Moniz. I don't know how many folks got a chance to see him. He made some keynote remarks at Chena Hot Springs, and then on Monday afternoon in Anchorage, he met with a group of Alaska Native leaders to hear directly from them. He spent about an hour and a half hearing directly from Alaska Native leadership on the challenges that they have. And I see Jody Mitchell's here from Southeast. She came all the way up from Southeast to meet with the Secretary. And it really gave him a very good opportunity to hear directly from folks here in the state on the energy challenges that you face. And I will say that he came back to the office and we are embarking on quite a few things now at his request, now that we've got his interest. A lot of it focused some on the Arctic Council activity, but much of it focused on rural Alaska. So because he is incredibly interested on how the Department of Energy as a overall agency can help address many of these issues, I'm looking forward to going back next week and briefing him on this conference and many of the ideas and information that I can share with him and take back to him on what we can do to help you with your rural energy issues. DOE over the last few years has awarded tens of millions of dollars in financial assistance and technical assistance. We also, through some of our other offices, Office of Energy Efficiency, financial assistance around geothermal, around in-river hydro. Our sister office, the Tribal Energy Program, which has been a partner with us at the department for the last couple of years in providing funding for the START program and for our other technical assistance programs. We're trying to take advantage of this multi-million-dollar investment over the last few years to develop some initiatives that help move the ball forward and help move some of the efforts forward where we can provide that assistance, where we can provide the complementary support to what's already happening, where we can fill some gaps where things aren't happening, and maybe we have a unique ability to do that. One of the things that we also wanted to make sure that we did to show our high level of commitment to Alaska was to finally put a DOE employee in Alaska. So in January, we hired Givy Kohanovsky, who's in the back. Raise your hand, Givy. That's our program manager for DOE Office of Indian Energy. Givy's located in the Denali Commission, sitting down the hall from Jim Nordland, who is the state director for USDA. He's been frantically at work. Givy's been frantically at work over the last few months, establishing the connections, working with the folks both on the state side and just as importantly on the federal side to help leverage federal resources with the state resources so that we can try and bring to the discussion from Victor Joseph earlier, maximizing the resources that we have available. So Givy's your man on the ground. He's the one you call when you want to complain about something that I'm doing. Not that it's going to help, but it could. You never know. But Givy's the guy to call when you have any questions about what DOE is doing, and it doesn't matter what part of DOE. So give Givy the call first, and he's your eyes and ears on the ground and your communication of information back to DC. Of course, I'm always available, but I want to make sure you know that you have someone here. And make sure you come this afternoon. I'm going to plug Givy's panel. He's on the panel talking about federal programs that are available for financing energy efficiency and renewable energy projects, so make sure you go to his panel later on. The upcoming year for us is going to be really busy. Now that I've got Givy here, and I'm lamenting the loss of my frequent flyer miles, but it's more important to have somebody here who can actually start to leverage the work that we've been trying to lay the groundwork for the last couple of years. So we're going to get really, really busy. First thing we're going to be doing is going out with Start Round 3. We'll be opening up applications for that program the middle to the end of October. It's going to remain a competitive technical assistance program. We currently have 10 villages in the START effort. For Start Round 3, we're going to be making a couple of big changes. One, we're going to open up some regional activity. So we're going to try and leverage with AEA and with the regional corporations, the regional energy planning exercises that have been taking place. And so we're going to be looking at how we can provide some additional technical assistance to those efforts so that regional energy planning and the project development that's going to come out of that. We're also going to extend out the program a little bit. One of the things we learned is we go in, we do a site visit, and then we leave, and then we provide a little bit of support, and we're not really spending the time with the community that we need to spend to help with the capacity building, the education, and the initial project development that results in some projects getting done. So we're going to be extending the time that we provide START support, and we're also going to be extending the reach. It's typically a community-focused effort. It's going to remain community-focused, but we're also going to take a look at establishing some regional focus on START for our third round. So you'll get an announcement when the applications open up, but look for it about middle to the end of October. You know, we also provide free technical assistance, about 40 hours of free technical assistance to any tribe or native corporation or intertribal organization that requests it. And we've focused our technical assistance really around community-based energy planning. And we've heard earlier about how important it is, the St. George example of how important it is to have that community-based plan and the community, especially the community buy-in and increasing the education of energy challenges at the community level. So we focus a lot of our technical assistance around community-based planning, but we're also, of course, focused on the technology challenges. As I said, one of our key elements is how do we identify the appropriate technology for a particular community. I like to tease folks sometimes that just because you can doesn't mean you should. So it's important at the community level to understand what is feasible, both technically feasible and financially feasible. And what do you need to do to help make those projects go? And our technical assistance is still focused around identifying appropriate technology, building capacity to build, operate, and maintain that technology. And also focusing on some of the financial opportunities, the various ways to pay for these projects. As much as we love AEA and USDA, who can provide free money, it's going to take a really long time to get all the projects done if that's the only avenue we use for funding projects. So how do we bring, John Moller talked about private investment. One of the things we've been trying to encourage and build some capacity around is understanding how you can get the private sector to invest in rural energy projects. And there are quite a few models that we have seen develop both in the lower 48 and around the globe, especially around public-private partnerships. So we're going to focus this year on trying to develop some models and think about some models where we can bring the power of the private sector, mostly the funding of the private sector, to bear on actually building projects. So that's what our on-demand TA focuses on. We're also expanding some workshops. We've done the last couple of years an annual workshop. We are now going to regionalize those workshops. We're going to take them out into hub communities. We did a pilot test last month in Nome. So next year, or I guess this fiscal year, next calendar year, we'll be regionalizing workshops. I think we're doing one in Juneau. We're going to be doing one in Kodiak and Kotzebue. And possibly either Bethel or Dillingham, but don't quote me on that. But we're going to bring these workshops out into the hub communities. We had great participation with AEA and the regional corporations to participate in that. And so rather than trying to get everybody to come into a central location, we want to take the learning and the training out into the field. The third thing we're trying to do, of course, is to build in-state capability at the regional level. And so under Givey's leadership, we have developed what we call our Energy Ambassadors Program. We brought folks from around the 12 regions in earlier this month and provided them with training on how to develop a community-based energy plan, how to help communities facilitate the discussion around energy, so that we have in-place resources, if you will, folks out at the regional corporations or the intertribal organizations, so that as a tribe or a community requests assistance, rather than us necessarily sending someone from the lower 48 or from Anchorage, we have folks in the region who can provide that assistance to those tribes and help them begin those conversations as they're ready to begin them. So look for some more training for these energy ambassadors. I think Givey's got some training set up for December, and we're looking to try and leverage our resources as best we can to put more resources out into the regions that are more reactive, certainly more flexible, and obviously are able to leverage, because the regions are doing the regional planning, be able to leverage the regional planning exercises into the villages themselves. You know, we talk about technology, we talked about microgrids, and ASEP is doing a lot of work around microgrids, and we've been very happy to try and provide some support to ASEP over the last couple of years around learning what's going on in the existing projects, why they're working, why they're not working, and bringing some additional technical expertise. So we're happy to announce that today we've got two lab rats, as I affectionately call them, from Sandia National Lab. Are they in the room, Richard and Ben? Where are you guys? Stand up, you guys, so everybody can see you, because I want them to know who you are. So we got Richard Jensen and Ben Shankman, who are up from Albuquerque, Sandia National Lab. They're going to be spending a couple of weeks up here working with ASEP in partnership with ASEP to jointly investigate solutions to the challenge of providing reliable, economical, and sustainable energy for rural Alaska. Our goal of this partnership is to leverage the strengths of the lab and the strengths of ASEP so that the sum is greater than its parts. Sandia brings its experience and expertise in computations, system engineering, and microgrid analysis and design. They also have extensive experience in microgrid development for the Department of Defense. And the Department of Defense has been undergoing a very ambitious effort to develop microgrids on military installations, primarily for purposes of protecting themselves from grid failure. So these two guys are on the team that built microgrid systems for the Department of Defense, and we're going to rely on their expertise and their learning experience and bringing the principles of energy surety, which of course we all need. We need reliable energy, we need sure energy, we need energy security. It's got to be safe, and it's got to be sustainable, and it has to be cost effective. And so the models they've developed and they're going to bring in working with ASEP. ASEP, of course, as you heard earlier, brings their expertise in the Arctic, in Alaska, around systems integration. And so our hope is that for the next 2 or 3 weeks, we kick off a nice partnership that will be maintained, and we'll be sponsoring Sandia to maintain that partnership with ASEP so we can deal with the real technical and engineering challenges that we have as we're developing renewable energy systems in the villages and integrating them into these diesel systems. Lastly, we tend to sponsor a lot of research and analysis in the lower 48. We haven't really taken a look at some stuff up here, but we are going to also be supporting some case study analysis. Again, as Brian was saying, understanding what's happening in the existing projects. So we'll be working with ASEP to sponsor some case study analysis of existing projects so we can learn from what's working and learn from what's not working. And we also want to try and understand at the utility level what some of the challenges are for native-owned utilities, whether they are owned by the tribal government or owned by a native corporation. But what are some of both the operational challenges, the financial challenges, the human challenges around the operation of the utility, and how do we identify the barriers that those utilities face, and what are the opportunities that we have so that utilities are prepared for the adoption of more renewable energy. I like to say that the easiest thing to do is build the windmill. The harder thing to do is to keep it operating. And as we start to integrate more and more renewable energy into these diesel systems, and you start getting more and more fancy parts of the system in, like a programmable controller, and God knows what kind of storage you want to use, and you've got 3 windmills and 4 solar panels and a whole host of combination of technology, we have to learn how to train up our utilities, our utility operators, our utility managers, our local workforce around being able to build, operate, and maintain these systems. And that human component is important. So we want to try and get an understanding of what those human component challenges are and what those financial challenges are as we move forward. Lastly, I want to announce that we will be kicking off our outreach and consultation for the national strategy for the Arctic region. I don't know how many folks are familiar with this. We'll be holding an information session tomorrow at between 5:30 and 6:30 in the Gold East Room. But under the President's National Strategy for the Arctic region, there is a sliver of activity that the Department of Energy is responsible for in terms of trying to identify a 10-year federal plan for accelerating the deployment of renewable energy in the Arctic region. Definition of Arctic: everything north of the Yukon, west of the Kuskokwim, and right at about Falls Pass, the Aleutians. So a great deal of villages and communities, including the hub communities. We will begin consultation as required with our government-to-government responsibility with the tribal governments and the native corporations, and that will kick off in October at AFN. And then shortly after that, we will be conducting consultation and outreach meetings in Borough, Nome, Bethel, Kotzebue, and Dutch Harbor. And then we will complete our consultation with another round of outreach and consultation back here in Fairbanks towards the end of November. So we have our exact schedule. We'll have more information on Wednesday. I encourage you if you want to get some more information on it, but we are certainly looking for input into what this 10-year plan should look like. It is due next summer, so we will be working frantically to get it developed. We have, of course, our state stakeholders, other nonprofits and other stakeholders, and of course this room is the biggest stakeholder of all. So we really encourage you, if you have any questions about it, come see me afterwards, and we can give you a little bit more information, but the information session on Wednesday will give you some more information about what we're looking at doing. So in short, you know, the Office of Indian Energy is just incredibly excited about our engagement. The Secretary is excited about what we can do in Alaska. He's looking to increase investment, increase participation from the department. We, of course, have doubled our investment, and we're trying to bring in both the expertise that the department has, access to information, access to other resources. We are trying through GIVI and through our efforts in Washington, D.C. to herd the federal cats so that the federal government and other federal agencies can bring resources to bear on your challenges. And we look forward to continuing our collaboration with you and our coordination in assisting rural Alaska and the Alaska Native villages and corporations in achieving their energy goals. Make sure you stop by our booth. We're right out front. Ask any questions. We have in addition to our two Sandia National Lab folks, we also have two folks from the National Renewable Energy Lab here. So feel free to stop by if you have any questions. Please let me know if you have any thoughts or comments, of course, on how we can move forward in working with you. Thank you, and please have a good conference.
Thank you, Pilar. So with those words of wisdom, we're going to go back up and give you just some general things to look forward to for the conference as we go forward. For those that don't know me, I'm Robert Venables. I'm the Energy Coordinator for Southeast Conference, the Regional Development Organization in Southeast. And you'll see me up and down here trying to make sure that we stay on schedule and keep moving forward. So if you all do like you did this morning and get here on time, it'll be my job to get you out of here on time. So, well, then we'll always have somebody to blame that maybe talks too long. But you'll see a kind of a blend of presentation styles. We'll have a plenary sessions like we have here now, and then we'll go into our breakout sessions where there'll be 3 concurrent tracks of information. And so there's going to be something in there for everyone. We hope you'll find those opportunities. For those of you that are looking for professional development credits, continuing education credits, there's forms there. The moderators can sign off on that. It'll be your responsibility to take it from there. But that's also available. And thank you, Pilar and the Department of Energy, for being one of our sponsors. You'll see a number of other sponsors listed in the booklet on the screens at times and out at the booths between our sponsors and our vendors to take the time to thank each one for their participation in making this event successful. There's going to be door prizes on Thursday during the speed dating session, which you'll all want to go attend, or maybe even participate and speak at. If you have 3 minutes, you want to brag about something that you haven't seen on the schedule, we're going to give you an opportunity to do that before the bomb goes off. It'll be great fun and information as well. And at the end of each session, there'll be evaluation forms. So do take a moment to provide us some feedback as we go through the day. You'll see folks wearing ASIP pens and myself. Grab any of us if you have questions, but the amazing staff behind the tables will be the most informative ones from AEA and ASIP. So if you have need of anything throughout the conference here, do grab us. There'll be a second buffet line set up during the lunchtime, so we can get folks moved there quickly and back in for our lunch program. So with that, you know, one of the themes that Victor Joseph started us off with, and each one really talked about the collaboration that is so important to make everything a success. And so these networking sessions and break times are an important opportunity to do that. And we're going to give you an extra few minutes to launch right into that. The first day is always the most exciting as we see each other for the first time in a few weeks or months or since the last time we gathered. So do take full advantage of this opportunity and find a breakout session at 10:30 to attend, and we will see you there. Have a good morning.